hour is MP Romain Laville. And when he walked in, he says, "Hold on, Lady Grace." I said, "Hell yeah. Come in here, we're going to talk for an hour." I know you can talk even more for more than an hour, right? Yeah, you got a lot of stuff to talk about this morning. And one of the things I asked you prior to going to the break was, how do you plan to deal with the legal issues prior to the elections, and how do you expect the electorate to feel?
Well, Lady Grace, thank you for, that elephant has always been in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to take this opportunity right now to hand deliver you a special package.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. This, Lady Grace, as you can see, is all the documentations that relates to my firearm. One of the things that I am saddened by, and it shows that as a country, the direction of where we're going. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to go too much into it, Lady Grace, because it's a legal issue, but I have to say this. I am somewhat saddened by the fact that this situation has been going on for 4 years now. And not once did the print media, who writes all of the things that they write about my person concerning this situation, mm-hmm. has ever contacted me for me to give my side of what really took place. Mm-hmm. That to me is very unfortunate. And the only thing that I am, how you would say, sorry for is that when these things started to be mentioned in the press, mm-hmm. that I didn't go right away and to clear that. Lady Grace, there is no issue between me or no case between any individual or entity against Romain Laville. There is a case between individuals and a position in which I took on the floor of Parliament. As a young person, Lady Grace, that understood and understand certain moral principles. I have never been in any legal issues in my whole entire life until I came into politics.
This document, as a matter of fact, before you continue, indicates the legal document for your permit, actually, to have a gun.
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
And even indicating that you a member of Parliament also requesting a new renewal of your gun license.
Yes.
There you go.
This is something, Lady Grace, that it's an ongoing issue. It's an ongoing issue that it is really bothersome. In 2010, let me just make it clear. In 2012, when the quote-unquote incident happened between me and my colleague, mm-hmm. it was an incident concerning what was going on with the Pelican workers at that time and the position that I took to stand by their side. Yesterday was a very happy day for me, not because it was my birthday, but because it was my the day that I announced that I'll be coming back. And when you read the newspaper this morning, and you say to yourself, but it is impossible that these individuals are actually there at that launching. Mm-hmm. Most of the stuff that I spoke about were not mentioned in the papers.
Right. More. It looks like more that it went into this.
Yes.
About
your
case.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it shows me that there is some hidden agenda somewhere. It cannot be that you're going to constantly keep saying all the time, especially with my firearm.
You think the press is biased, though? I mean, from what you've noticed in the papers this morning.
Which press does not have a hidden agenda? And for 4 years, and I made a statement yesterday, I said I am grateful finally that after 4 mm-hmm. years, the press that is here actually asks me the question about my legal case and not write what they want to write.
Right.
And so you have the documentations of my firearm.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when they keep saying that I have an illegal firearm and there were ammunitions at my house and all these other crazy mm-hmm. things where that is concerned, it clearly states that I was issued a firearm on August 17, 2012. Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I was issued a firearm 2 months after the quote-unquote incident mm-hmm. that happened between me and my colleague, George James. It's clearly stated there for your perusal that on several occasions I requested to have my firearm renewed. I never received a response. Mm-hmm. And so if persons can lie about a simple situation like that, what else about my whole case is true?
Mhm.
And so I am not bothered about my case,
You
Lady
think this is
Grace.
to embarrass you, probably?
Of course it is. Look, listen, you do not take a stand the way that I took a stand for this country and look at it real good. Everyone that has taken a stand against certain individuals have found themselves in some legal issue one way or the other.
Mhm.
But that is a cross, Lady Grace, that I am prepared to bear.
The
Not a,
justice system you're saying is flawed then.
I am saying that whatever is working and going on to be able to discredit me in the eyes of the public for whatever agenda that they want to have, I am saying to the public of St. Martin, don't read those things. Don't listen to those nonsense. I decided to bring you the first copy that you have in your
Thank
hands
you. I'm seeing
that
that
you
right
can
now.
see. And
Right.
so there's a cross, Lady Grace, that as a young person in this country that
Hmm.
has a heart for his people that I have to bear. And that is a cross, Lady Grace, not what you wear, as a great leader of mine would say, not that you wear in your ear or around your neck, that says you are what you may not be, but a cross, Lady Grace, that represents rejection, being evil spoken of, being falsely accused and brought before courts on unjust charges. That is a cross, Lady Grace, that I have borne for the people of St. Martin for 4 years. Why am I bearing that cross? Not only did I stand up against people who were being taken advantage of, Lady Grace, I have brought more, and I don't like to keep saying it, but I have to come back to the fact of my 4 years in office. I have brought more legislation, Lady Grace, more draft laws. When parents and teachers would call me on a day-to-day basis, Romain, can you assist the schools in bringing breakfast or sandwich or peanut butter or milk? I came together and I got the airport. I got Regina LaVega. I am forever grateful for Regina LaVega at the airport. I'm forever grateful for Peter Cox at Godet Catering, who caters for the flights. And we put a breakfast program together with the little resources that we had to be able to say, you know what, we cannot say that our children are the future and they have to lead and we want them to have the best education. How is that possible on an empty stomach? And you have certain individuals who are there, who have the resources, who have the wherewithal, who have the connections. But instead of that, our children can't eat crayons every single day, every time. And so at the end of the day, Lady Grace, the stance that I've taken, the laws that I have brought to be able to liberate my people. I read the other day that MP Leona Malin was discussing the pension.
Mhm.
That is something, Lady Grace, that in 2013, after meeting with some of the members of parliament in one of the Palatino trips that we had, they were discussing that Aruba, of starting January 1st, 2012, would implement a pension plan to make sure that every single worker in Aruba has another income when they got to that age. I thought I was so fascinated. I contacted the faction leader in Aruba and I said, I need to get a copy of that pension plan. That was presented on the floor of Parliament, not for me personally, even though I will benefit from it when I reach 60, but to make sure that we would curb and stop the curse, I would say, that is going on with our elderly, that our next generation now can be able to, when they reach 60 years of age, not only get the pension from the ROV, from 62, sorry, from the ROV, but they can get an extra added income coming in. As government officials, Lady Grace, we receive, when we reach 60, we have a pension plan app now. When I worked at the harbor, I was under the pension plan of Fathom. So why isn't it that it can be possible for the lady that is working as a cashier in a grocery store, the young lady or the mother who is working at the jewelry store on Front Street, the young boy who is washing cars down the road, and so on and so forth. Why can't they have a pension too at the end of their years? And so these are the things that I brought. And so my legal situation isn't because it's something that I have done. It is because I have rocked the boat of the established elites who have had our people in the condition that they're in, and they realize that maybe, just maybe, this young man is really serious about doing something to relieve the heart of our people. And so what I say to our young people here today, this isn't about Romain Laville. Because when I left Parliament in 2014, I gave the President of Parliament not the copies, but the original in a folder of all the work that I have done. And I told the President of Parliament at the time, this is for the next generation of members of Parliament because government is about continuity.
Right.
And so I could have been selfish like the rest of them and keep all of those documentations and legislations. I could have been selfish and keep the legislation of the rights of employee to transfer from one company to the next, Article 662, 666, right? So that a Pelican situation would never happen again. I could have kept the legislation of the pawn shop that I brought in Parliament that makes sure that whenever somebody pawns an item in a pawn shop that is thoroughly regulated, that a photocopy of the documentations are given, a description of the item is pawned, and that documentation every afternoon is given. Yes, absolutely. That was the first one that I presented. I refer to it as the Hundo legislation because it came about when my good friend Hundo Rami was hog-tied and robbed when they broke into his home. And so we sat there at his home, myself and Eddie Williams at the time, and we were talking about certain things. And I said to myself, is there any legislation where the pawn shop is concerned that we have so much that are coming about? And I contacted the police department to find out information as to what legal rights do they have to go into these pawn shops to see if they have any stolen items. And that is why I brought the Alabama pawn shop legislation. Not for my person, but to make sure that 99% of the time that item can be retrieved. That at the end of the day, when the pawn shop owner sends that documentation to the police department, the police looks at it and says, well, wait a minute. Grace Blyden says that iPhone 6 of hers was stolen. This was a serial number. Wait a minute. This was pawned yesterday.
Right.
Who was the one who pawned it? Oh, Romain Lavelle? Okay. We know
so that legislation didn't have any follow-up at all.
No follow-up.
And this is something that, before you continue, this is something that we see happen very often because we keep changing governments all the time. Legislations are presented and no follow-up. Is that a sense of a reason why that we can't move forward?
But the government has to be a reflection of Parliament.
Yeah.
Parliament sets the tone. So if Parliament brings legislation, it doesn't matter which government
That's what
is there.
That's what I'm saying.
Those legislations should be enacted and should be
but
used.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
And so that is the maturity that we have, Lady Grace. We talk about wanting to have a hospital facility built here in St. Martin, right? Fine, great, wonderful. We have a wonderful structure. But what is the problem that we are facing here in St. Martin? The problem we are facing here is the care for our people. It cannot be, Lady Grace, that we spend hundreds and thousands of dollars every year to send our loved ones away overseas to Cuba or Venezuela or Colombia and all of those different countries. But we can't get some of these people to come and work in our own hospitals for a cheaper rate that we would have had. That is why, Lady Grace, I penned an MOU. Two specific MOUs. One with Dominica specifically, where the Prime Minister of the country in sitting with him granted us 5 free scholarships for the people of St. Martin. The beginning, it was 2 for nursing and 3 for business. Later on, I sent him a BB message. I said, comrade, can we have a change to the proposed scholarships? He says, no problem. I said, I would like to take away the business because 9 times out of 10, our students will go somewhere else to study business. I would like to put in agriculture in it too as well. Because I started to see a lot of our young people in St. Martin starting to go in the agricultural manner. And so I changed the structure of the scholarship would change, where it was 3 for medical and 2 for agriculture. What would that have done, Lady Grace? That would have mean that our student who wanted to study in the medical field could have gone to Dominica, studied for 2 years free of charge, and also be part of the deal that Dominica has with Cuba. Every single year, Lady Grace, Dominica sends 30 students to Cuba to study medicine. St. Martin students would have been part of that 13. And so after that is done, they could have come back with the knowledge that they've had and take care of our people here. And so these are things, Lady Grace, that were done in Parliament under my term. As inexperienced as I was at the time, as an individual that people said that I got too emotional at times. But my record is my record. And it was done not for Romain Laville. It was done to make sure that it got to a point that enough was enough.
Mhm.
We cannot continue the way that we're continuing. Somebody has to fix the wrong and make the crooked road straight. And so, what I'm saying today to those that are listening, it is important that we get in part and get a part and be part of the process in this country
Mhm.
where together and only together we can be able to shape this country in the way that it should go. And it will not happen by this young person tearing down this other young person
Mhm.
and this young person looking for fault at that other young person, because that is what they want of us. That is what they want us to do, Lady Grace,
Mhm.
to divide ourselves and have us fighting against each other while they sit back and continue to eat.
All right. Yesterday, I asked some of my social media Facebook followers that if they had any questions that just throw it at me, and I'll share it with you. And these are questions directed to you.
No problem.
One person, right, wrote, ask him about that Chad Ochocinco fiasco that caused the island unnecessary debt, and ask him about the whole temple fiasco.
Well, Lady Grace, let me say this. I think it is very unfortunate. Um, this is a very, I love St. Martin deeply with the bottom of my heart. But sometimes we are funny people. Look, the temple situation, I can tell you this. If I was still part of my political party, that temple event would have gone down without a problem. I wouldn't have gotten one negative feedback from it. Not one negative feedback from it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But because at that time, I
And
pulled up with
how much money actually?
$400,000.
$400,000.
Yes, $400,000.
Okay.
Let me explain this thing. I have a personal relationship with Mr. Frederick Morton.
Mhm.
I've known him for a very long time. I have always, just like everyone else, have enjoyed watching Temple on television when they first came out. Wow, here is a young, black, local Caribbean man who has a television network
Mhm.
that is airing almost throughout the world, unheard of for a Caribbean man. And so I am not a person, Lady Grace, that is envious of anybody. I have a good relationship with Frederick, and so I told him, I said, listen, Frederick Temple is turning 7 years old. And what he does every year is that he celebrates the network in a different Caribbean island. I remember when I worked at the harbor a couple years ago, you remember the Summerfest that was
Yep.
done with Clarence Derby
Yeah.
and all of that. I thought it was the most wonderful thing St. Martin has ever had. Ever had. You had a point where you had 3 nights. One night was reggae, the other night was hip hop,
Mhm.
and Sunday was Bobby Jones gospel.
Right. That was a Sunday.
We have always said in St. Martin, we need something other than Carnival.
Mhm.
Am I right or wrong?
And we need it right now too because we're in the we just entered the off season.
We've always cried about that.
But what would have that $400,000 done for the island?
Grace, there's one thing people need to understand. Giving $400,000 to a promoter to put on a show is different between giving $400,000 to a television network.
Mm-hmm.
You go ask Anguilla how much they pay to be on television. Go ask Aruba how much they pay. What is their budget to have 30-second advertisement on mainstream television? You go ask St. Kitts and those who are part of Sandals how much they pay to be part of that. We don't do none of those things, Grace. The only way we really advertise St. Martin is in a Discover magazine that you get when you walk in onto the plane to come to St. Martin. Hey, listen, chances are, in the book, St. Martin is only 16, that side only 16 square miles.
Right.
You'd put into one of those stores. So having a magazine to tell you what St. Martin has when you walk in the plane, have already booked your ticket to go to St. Martin, to me that's counterproductive where advertisement is concerned. We have never advertised or have had St. Martin showcased on any network. And so it was my idea of saying, you know what, this is something good for the island to help to market the island. Moreover, Lady Grace, when was the last time that anybody before me, past commissioners, past ministers, have ever done something to give artists, local artists on St. Martin, who have been trying their best to be able to get that exposure. When last was something like that done to them? So the idea of having the tempo event was so that the artists on St. Martin who were trying to get that break and trying to get that exposure, that they would have gotten that exposure worldwide. I was so proud when I saw Shadow Man on the Tempo network. When you look at Tempo Network, you will see Jamaica, Bahamas, Virgin Islands, and so forth and so on, Trinidad. And when I saw Shadow Man, I said, yes, St. Martin has made it. The idea was to have more shadow men, and women to get that exposure. And so during that time was the same time that I left with my party. I had Mr. Martin's mom would come back to the office and said to us in a meeting, well, they have certain businesses on St. Martin that refuse to sell the tickets because they were threatened by individuals not to sell the tickets for the event. It's a true story. I'm not making this thing up, Lady Grace. And so there was a systematic setup and approach by certain individuals in this community who contacted me to be a part of the show, who wanted to do stuff and who wanted money for it. And because they didn't get the money that they wanted, I'll say it here, because if you're gonna, I always tell people this, Lady Grace, I don't scratch where I don't itch. I don't bow where I don't have to. But if you throw stuff like that to me, I will expose you for what you are and who you are. There are certain individuals in this community who are in the marketing field, who wanted to be part of that event, who send their little people, their spies, to come and ask to be a part of it, to do marketing and so forth. And when they realized that they were not going to get the money that they wanted, all of a sudden this thing became something huge. And so at the end of the day, this wasn't for me. This was to make sure that our artists got the exposure that they needed. Ask yourself the question, and when I spoke to the artists, we had artists came down.
Because some of the local artists were actually asking to be paid.
Of course.
Right.
Look, I wasn't part of that. That wasn't my doing. You know, I had a meeting with some of the artists and I asked them this question. Are you doing this for the love of music?
For the exposure?
Or are you doing it as a career? If you're doing it as a hobby, I know it's about the money. If you're doing it as a career, I know you know what it is that you need to have done. Which promoter would have come to St. Martin and picked up any one of our artists and say, come, I want you to perform on the same stage as T-Pain? Who would have ever done that for our artists? Which promoter would have come to St. Martin and said, I want you to perform on the same stage with the Mighty Sparrow? That would have never happened. Which promoter would have come to St. Martin and say, I want you on the same stage with Marcia Griffith? This was what the exposure that could not have been paid for, that was given to the artist. Because we have to understand this thing. And you know, I'm saddened by it. It bothers me a lot, Lady Grace, because you ask yourself, what more can you do for your people? Your people cry out to you that they want certain things to happen for them. But when you do it, those same people find ways and faults to be able to destroy whatever you're doing for them. And so this situation, Lady Grace, is something that bothers me a lot. I will not go much into it. The idea for the event, the Tempo event, was to give the local artists exposure, to be able to put them on a platform that you never know that you may have a promoter or a manager may come down looking for local artists or local talent, and somebody in St. Martin would have gotten that break. That was the idea. Instead of those who say that they care about St. Martin, those who say that they have to take their country back as though this is a kingdom and they are kings and queens, instead of them understanding the bigger picture, they have tried and have done everything to destroy this event. Yes, there was a poor turnout to the event, but those who didn't turn out to the event stayed home and watched it because it was aired live throughout the whole Tempo world, throughout the whole Caribbean, throughout everywhere. So that is why they could have criticized and said all the things that they said, because they didn't pay their ticket to come to the show, but they watched it at home for free of charge. And so we cannot say, Lady Grace, that we care about our people. We cannot say that we care about the future of our country. We cannot say that we care about the livelihood of our young, our elderly, and our men and women. That if you see something good for them, you will try your utmost best to destroy, because it's not you doing it and it's not you benefiting from it. And I hope that our people who have ears to hear. I hope that our people that back in the days, and I wish sometimes that Jesus was alive today and I would have taken some of the spit from his mouth to wipe the eyes of our people so that they can see that there are individuals in our society who really don't care about you, who speak one thing to you one time and stabs you in your back in the other. And so this is the reality that we're living here in St. Martin. And until we come together, until we forget about self, until we forget about individualism and understand that we are fighting a fight against an establishment that feels your child, your children, your son and your daughter will grow up to serve their children, their son and their daughter. And no matter what future you may have for your child, it depends on the future they want to have for your children. And this is evident today. Let's not sugarcoat this situation here. And I'm getting emotional, Lady Grace, because it is something I'm having goosebumps as I talk to you here now. Because I am tired. I am sick and tired of how this country is going. And that is the reason that I have returned here. That is the reason that I have joined the USP party, to be among young persons and individuals who fell victim to the same set of individuals that I am being prosecuted here with today. And so my legal issues is not of me. I leave it up to the Lord. I leave him to be the judge and him to be the one to decide whether or if I am guilty or not. Not certain individuals who have an agenda set forth to make sure that our people do not reach the benefit that they have to go. So I'm saying to the people of St. Martin, this coming election, do not take it for granted. This is one of the most important elections of our time. Stop for a moment. Look at your situation. Are you happy in the way in which you're living? Are you happy in the condition that you are in and year out? Are you happy to see that your children who have come back from studying cannot find jobs in the area of which you have sacrificed your blood and tears for them? As an elderly person, are you happy in the way in which your country has been developed and your country has grown? As a young person, will you sit by and continue to allow this type of mentality to run and control our new generation now, or will we take a stand? Will we take a stand as young people and say enough is enough? The fight have to continue, and that fight starts with us. Just how the Arab Rising started in Tunisia, where the young man who were being persecuted every single day by the authorities in his stores, every single day his fruits and baskets were thrown down. He decided enough was enough. And he went to the square and he lit himself on fire, and that caused the Arab Spring, and that caused a revolution throughout the Middle East. Where is our revolution today? Where is our revolution? Where are the young people to stand up? This isn't about me. This isn't about me. If we had persons who were selfish back in the 60s and the 50s, who said that they didn't want to walk with Martin Luther King and they could have done it better and so forth, we would have never realized the dream to be able to have the right to vote today. But people came together understanding one cause. We have to continue, ladies and gentlemen that are listening by my voice. We must continue to fight. It may not be solved in our lifetime. We may not live to see the promised land, as Martin Luther King said. He said, I've been to the mountaintop. I have seen the promised land. I may not get there with you. But we as a people, we as a country will get there one of these days if we separate from a pharaohic idea of mental slavery, that we look at our brothers and sisters and we try to destroy them instead of building them up. This is the thing that I hope today. And all of those that are listening and on Facebook and on media and so forth, I am speaking to you individually. What have you done lately to be able to shape this country? What have you done lately to be able to make sure that your voice is heard as a unanimous front for our young people and them? Have you tried to aid in the liberation of our people, or are you like them, trying to be able to destroy us? And so I hope, this is my hope, for my children, that they may be able to live in a St. Martin, that they don't have to ask anybody to live for their livelihood. It is my hope that my family, my cousins, my friends, and those of us who are here, that we may be able to say that we can walk down the street and look and see many young entrepreneurs in St. Martin. In 2010, 2014, Lady Grace, I brought a motion in Parliament to give our young people between the age of 18 and 30 the same tax breaks that we're giving these big corporations, to give them the opportunity to become businessmen. Not for me, but I want to make sure that the young boy in Sagagad, Duck Squat, in KB, in Kobe can look up and say, I want to be, and I want to aspire to be like this individual. I want to aspire to be like this person in society. And so this is the program that we should have, a programmatic approach. And for all those who write all of these things about us, the press has a responsibility. They're negating their responsibility by writing filth in the newspaper and writing lies about our people who are trying to liberate us. And so I call them also to task. And that is why, Lady Grace, you will not hear and see Romain Laville in the newspaper writing anything, because I am fearful of how they're going to turn it. If I have to say something, you will hear it from my voice itself, because I have realized in my 4 years, there are certain individuals in society that you cannot trust. And we have to decide today, and today only, when you wake up this morning, you look yourself in the mirror, can you say actually that you are alien to the mental and the economic enslavement of our people? Or are you one of those that are helping to liberate? The rich will be rich. The rich will be fine. But what happens to the poor man? What happens to the man who has no voice? The lady who has to get up 5 o'clock in the morning and go to a job over the hill, or go to a job wherever she goes, to clean rooms and sweep floors so that her children doesn't have to clean rooms and sweep floors. That is the fight. And that is why I have returned, to fight for them, to give them a voice. And that is why we have put together a wonderful team in the U.S. party, to make sure that we say and do, and we stand for what we believe in, and we say what is necessary for the people of St. Martin. And so, Lady Grace, I thank you once again for giving me that opportunity. I thank you, radio listeners, for listening. And it is my hope and my desire that we stop this foolishness, that we wake up. I am not your enemy. Romain Laville is not your enemy. Romain Laville is just like you, want to make something positive in this country. And whether or not you agree with my approach, whether or not you agree with my tone, you cannot negate the fact that I care about these people. And we have to stand together this coming election. Don't get led and misled by the chicken leg and the Johnny cake. They have not paid no mind to you for over 3.5 years. And all of a sudden they come by your door and offering you tut moon and bagay, offering you everything in this world for your vote. And after that they forget you. Wise up, people. Wise up. Grow a spine. Borrow some testicular fortitude and say that, you know what? No, I will make the decision that I need to make now for my people. Let's right this wrong, Lady Grace. And it is my hope. I may not live to see it. I may not live to see it. My life is threatened every day, and it's still threatened. It was threatened 4 years ago. It's still threatened today. You understand what I'm saying, Lady Grace? So I may not live to see. I hope to live to see my son grow. I hope to live to see my daughter get old and I may walk her down the aisle. But I don't know what the future is in store for me. And so I say to our people, stand up. For once in your life, stand up. Stand up for once in your life. Stand up for once in your life. Thank you, Lady Grace.
My guest this morning in the Breakfast Lounge. Of course, you heard him right here this morning live. And we hope to have him back soon again. Thank you so much, radio listeners, for listening. I'll be back here tomorrow morning again with a very interesting guest. I want to thank MP Romain Laville for being my guest here. And of course, congratulations again on your on joining with the U.S. party. And we look forward to having you and the entire team here. Hopefully, well, the other 2 members, of course, formerly of the UP party, all 3 of you. I would like to have all 3 of you here in the studios. Okay? Pretty soon. Thanks again, radio listeners. The news is up next. See you all